so as my health deteriorated, it was kind of a bummer because I was telling you earlier that I thought of myself as kind of the fat, lazy, undisciplined girl in the group. Like, I had really cute friends, and I had great friends, and nobody treated me poorly. I didn't feel mistreated so much as I just was the fat girl in the group, right? You have a group of friends, you're the fat girl. There's this girl, there's the fat girl, there might be a boy or two. I was just the fat girl. But I was funny, and I was okay with it, and I had good friends, so it was like, whatever. I couldn't figure out why I was the fat girl. I played soccer, I played baseball. I have pictures of me going back to like 2nd grade where you're in your little, outfit and you're posing for the picture. And when I turned 38, I don't know what the change was that year, but your body doesn't want to be so overweight. It just doesn't want to. And so I began starving myself. I drank tons of water. I ate chicken and green beans. I ate no salt. I ate no butter. And I was basically just very unhappy all the time. No. And you don't think about, I didn't think about taking my life, but I felt like my life sucked. For all the good things and all the wonderful things, the person I was walking around in my skin sucked. And I was always that person in my head. Nobody else needed to know that or knew it or whatever. But I was walking around almost 300 pounds, and I couldn't control it. That was what was so weird, is I couldn't control my body weight. It just kept creeping up. And so when I was 38, I just began to starve myself, and I didn't count calories. I just, tried to eat very little. And so I lost 100 pounds. And it was great because you're like, wow, now I fit into, like, size 16 was my skinny jeans. I'm like, I'm in like a real size that's, like somewhere I can get easily. And it was good, it was okay, but I was still 187. So that's still not, like, I don't know, it wasn't great. And I kept thinking, everywhere I go, I still look like a fat girl in the group because I'm still not a normal size. And I would change my workout. I would do this, I would do that. I would, work out 7 days a week. I would work out 5. I would work out every other. I would do it in the morning. I would do it at night. And then I would, continue to eat my green beans and chicken, and it never worked. And when thinking, I was 45, and my friend Claudia called me up, and she said, Jen, my doctor says I'm fat, and my cholesterol's high, and I want you to do the South Beach diet with me. Oh, I have to follow a diet? I don't do that. I don't even follow recipes. I don't want to follow rules. I don't want to read. And I didn't want to be accountable to Claudia. Like, oh my gosh, what does that mean, that we're going to be like in on this together? And I was like, okay, fine. I was turning 45, but it's kind of a nice round number. I can start something new. So I began the South Beach diet with Claudia June 1st that year. And I was religious about it. I was totally disciplined. I did exactly what it said. And 3 days later, Claudia had a glass of wine, and she never looked back. Totally bailed on me. Totally not there. I couldn't call. She was like, yeah, well, good luck. Lovely. So I motored on, and I spent the whole summer that year eating the South Beach diet, which wasn't bad. It was, low carb. But I didn't eat fat. I was still avoiding all of that, and didn't really have an understanding of what I was doing, but it was working. And toward the end of the summer, I lost 45 pounds. And I thought, wow, this has been a great investment. I mean, here I am. I need to do something to really lock it in. So I called PJ up, and I said, look, I've been eating like this, and I lost all this weight, and I really want to start training with you, and I want you to, work me out because I want to really hang on to this health. Like, I felt like I've made this great leap forward, and I just want to hang on to it. And he said, all right, come on down. So I came clear over to Alki. He put me through everything. He has all this amazing protocol and goal-setting stuff, and it was very holistic. And, I was telling him earlier, I'm like, honey, feel my legs. Honey, feel my butt. Everything was getting, like, really rock hard. And, I just would go into the gym, and I would come out just totally amped up and excited, and it was great. And you only had to go twice a week for 21 minutes. It was amazing. And I loved it. But eventually I had a job that was very demanding, and the commute was really hard, and and the trip out to Alki got to be too long. I couldn't fit it into my schedule like I was, and so I stopped doing it. And slowly I began to gain the weight back and just go soft, which I guess is what happened. But I have since read that if you have to exercise to control your weight, it's a problem with your eating. I don't know if that's something you'd agree with or not. But what you put in your body is so critical. Like, you shouldn't have to be working out 5 days a week to stay thin. People shouldn't have to run every morning to stay at an average body weight. It's the food you put in your body that should do that. So this was me after like 12 years of doing it. I mean, I kept the 100 pounds off, give or take. It went up and down a lot, but I kept off the 100 pounds. So I guess I would just pat myself on the back and go, well, you know, I guess you did something right. You know, it worked for a while. And I just hoped for something different. 2.5 years ago, I was having breakfast or lunch with a little girl that I took care of, and she asked me a question, and when I responded to her, the words tick, 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 tick came out of my mouth. And, right, you're like, that's not good. And I thought, well, I'll just say it differently, and maybe it'll come out right, and I can just forget this ever happened. And I went to talk to her again, and I said, tick, 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 tick. I'm like, I'm having a stroke. Great. So I picked up my phone and I called 911, and they sent a bunch of paramedics over, and my 3-year-old and I got a ride up to Swedish in an ambulance that day, and they kept me for 4 days. They, I should probably pass this around in the meantime. This was my menu, and you'll enjoy this. It's the cardiac diabetic menu, because they don't know what's wrong with me, but they're going to restrict everything, you know, just in case. I was in the ICU. And so it appeared to be like really serious, although there was nothing wrong with me after that. You just don't want to put somebody else's child in a car and drive away after saying tick, tick, tick randomly. And so they did 3 MRIs, they did 2 brain scans, they did a spinal tap, they did everything. And, you know, I really have to give them credit for being thorough. I didn't feel like they were blowing me off. I just felt like they didn't know what they were doing. They're just like, you know, throwing darts and just seeing if something's stuck. And 4 days later, I was like, I just gotta go. I mean, I can't stay here. I'm gonna go home. So I got dressed and I got up and I left. That menu, I was stuck with that menu for those 4 days. And that menu, I don't eat that way. South Beach, that's not even South Beach. That's like unbelievably
so much sugar in there.
Off base. Right, and they limited my carbs to 75 grams a meal.
Oh my God.
A meal. Yeah. So what is that? Like 300, you know, it's almost 300, you know, carbs. In
Daily
a day.
allowance.
The daily allowance,
Yeah.
which is pretty standard. 200 to 300 is pretty much what people eat more, probably.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't even eat here. Like, I eat my normal way, and I'm not a really, you know, strict person in the first place. So this is where you're putting your health in the hands of people who are not doctors. They're not the caregivers, they're the corporation that owns those. They're a company. And I'm sure that they're stuck on the food pyramid, and they have to do that because they can get sued, and there's any number of other issues. But you have to think and advocate for yourself. I guess that's my point in passing that around, is that when you wind up in these situations, you have to be skeptical, you have to be cynical, you have to ask these questions, because they are accountable not to you, they're accountable to their shareholders and the people in charge of making the money. And if you get well, their margins shrink. And I won't go on about that because it makes me crazy. But after having that, what I believe was a stroke, and I believe it was a TIA, they never called it that. I didn't know what to do. And so for a year, I was, I don't know, what are you, just waiting for the next thing? It wasn't comfortable. I had a doctor that I wanted to trust, and I had gone to her because I had health insurance, and I started thinking about keto. And the only reason I thought about keto is because PJ had mentioned it the year before my stroke. And when I had gone to my doctor, I said, I'm thinking about this thing, it's called keto, it's a way of eating, and I'm kind of explaining it to her. At the same time, I'm kind of asking her what she thinks. And she goes, oh my gosh, don't do that. That is so dangerous. That is full of saturated fats. That is all these animal products. She scared me. And I'm not easy to scare. But my dad had died at 50. My mom had breast cancer. And I had just had, like this scare, this stroke thing. And I'm like, really, what am I going to do? Because this keto stuff makes sense to me. Like, this actually sounds like real food that will nourish my body. And now you're telling me it's horribly dangerous and I shouldn't do that. And I was like, great, I'm just back to square one. But she scared me enough, I didn't do it. And she had me eat. Oh, in fact, I actually even hired a health coach. It's so sad to me because I know that there's nobody in this room that takes their health lightly. Nobody is flippant about it. Nobody's like, whatever, I don't care how I live. We're all people who care and want to take care of ourselves, whether it's for us, for our families, for our kids, for our parents. And yet, I feel like the medical profession, the world at large, treats us like kindergartners, and they don't know any more than we know. They're not trained in nutrition. And so the things that we're putting in our mouths all day long, they have no knowledge of. They don't understand any of it. They're only educated to run tests and medicate us. And so after I was released from the hospital, had talked to my doctor about keto, still felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I thought it was what it was. But I hired a cardiologist. That was my next step. I was like, what was my next step? My next step was to hire a cardiologist because my dad was dead at 50. And I thought, well, I'm coming up on 49. I better be prepared. I don't know. What do people do? I talked to a couple of cardiologists. I picked the one I liked. I thought, I should be her friend because she might be there when I die. I don't know. I wanted her to take me seriously. I wanted to like her. And I began to have chest pains in December of, I think it was 16. And they were really centrally located right here. Nothing down my arm, nothing up my neck.
How old were you then?
I was 49. No, I was 50 and a half. Let me see, 50, yeah, I had turned 50 in May, and so this was the December after I turned 50. And I'd already had the cardiologist in place, and here it is. I'm like, here it is. I have nothing. This is like, the next adventure. And I called, and I told them that, and they were like, well, she's in Hawaii. I'm like, oh, excellent. So they scheduled a stress test, and I went in, and I worked in the morning, and I went to my appointment in the afternoon, and I did my stress test, and it took about 25 minutes, and they caused the pain. And I'm like, there it is, that's it. And she goes, oh yeah, I see it on the readout. There's an anomaly, and we're how the surgeon came in. So the surgeon came in and talked to me. I called Bill. They said, look, we're going to do an angiogram. They used to do those things like up your legs, and now they can do them like right here in your arm, especially if you're healthy. And within certain parameters, I was very healthy. I'm just like I am right now. And so they put this little camera, it goes poof, up, and up pops this, screen's image. And my heart's beating and whatever. And I was telling Beege, I was laying there, and we're all talking 1 minute about vacationing in Torofino. We're talking about the exchange rate for Canada. And the next minute, this thing pops up, and he goes, oh, wow. He goes, huh. He goes, do you see that? I'm like, well, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. He goes, I'm not talking to you. Like, it's my turn to shut up and still. And he's totally serious. And I was like, oh, well, why, what's wrong? And he had told me before that he was going to go ahead and put stents in. If we got in there and it looked like I needed a stent, you guys all know what stents are? Mm-hmm. Pretty common. It's like a little thing that opens up your blood vessel, basically to allow it to move blood through. And so I was like, oh yeah, I know what those are. Yeah, go ahead, whatever, I'm here, right? Like, what am I going to do, say no? And I said, okay. So he goes, I couldn't put one stent in here, let alone the 20 that you need. He was like, he goes, you have to have open heart surgery. And he's as freaked out as I am. He seems like more freaked out than I am. And I'm like, really? Because I don't feel that bad. I'm pretty sure I can just He's like, no, you're not going anywhere. The ambulance came and got me from that building and literally drove me around the building to the ER, and I didn't leave. And I spent the night in the ER, and Bill came, and the next morning they moved me to Virginia Mason, and the following day I had quadruple bypass open heart surgery. So I had a scar from about here to here, and they took a vein. I don't know if you can see, I have a spot right here and a spot here on my leg. So they used to slice you open and remove the vein like that, but now they can pull it out like a noodle, snip it off, tie it all up. They're very good at all that trickiness. And so that vein is now somewhere in here, chopped up into a few pieces that now function as my heart. So all that to say, I came out of the surgery just fine. I mean, I'm only 50. Actually, it was really easy.
I'm still recovering.
Yeah. It was way harder on Bill, yeah, than it was on me.
And Bill came up with some great jokes.
He did this too.
Yes, you were just like the doctor looked in there and said, you were just like 2 butter sticks away from heaven.
Right.
Oh,
right.
That's
not funny.
No, but those I know.
No, the surgeon said,
Keto.
the surgeon said you needed triple bypass surgery, and he came out after surgery and said, well, I was in there and ended up doing 4. And I said to him, well, that's okay because I got a coupon, buy 3, get 1 free. He didn't think I was funny.
Surgeons are not funny. He wasn't.
No, he didn't let
Bill
it.
has a great sense of humor.
Yes. Yeah. So I asked the surgeon, I said, how did this happen? Because once again, not a smoker, not a drinker, 100 pounds down, kept it off for 12 years. I don't know. What else can I do? And he goes, yeah, it's pretty much hereditary. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. So my mom was diabetic. My mom had breast cancer, and my dad had this. So basically, we're all just going to wait to die of what whoever before us died of. But before my mom, nobody in my family had breast cancer. So she was new. So now we have to be afraid and worried about the next thing that's going to pop up and all the other things that we all have. I just thought, how can this be the way it works? I'm pretty sure several generations ago, we died of old age, we died of tuberculosis, we died of things that were infectious. These are all chronic, and we'll learn about that more. Anyway, I should stop talking because we need to get PJ up here. This is me after 4 months on keto. I have never been below 187. Miss Mara?
When did you get diagnosed with diabetes?
That is kind of, when I went into the hospital, yeah, when I went into the hospital, in fact, I have I'll show you how this worked. They told me that I was diabetic when I had my stroke. Now, diabetes, the pre-diabetic, I believe, is 6 to, do you know what that is? Does anybody know it? Like actual diabetic, your A1C, I think it has to be double digits. So anything above 6 becomes diabetic. And 4 to 6 is normal. You can be below 4 with your A1C, and that's fine. 4 to 6 is normal. Anything above 6 becomes pre-diabetic and then diabetic. And this really cute little guy comes in, and he's got a kit, and he puts it in your lap, and you open the box like it's Christmas, and it's blood glucose strips, and meters, and this, and this, and this, and this. And you start a new life dependent on insulin. And actually, it wasn't even insulin, it was metformin at first, which is like pre-insulin. And you are now drug dependent. And that's all they tell you. Here you go, these are your drugs, this is who you are now, this is what you do, bye. And you leave dependent on drugs because you can't control your sugar. That's what they tell you. You cannot control your sugar, you need drugs to do it. So last January, 2 Januaries ago, when I had my open heart surgery, as I was recovering, my mom was declining. She had breast cancer. It came back for the 4th or 5th time, I don't know. And I took care of her as she declined, which was great. It worked out perfect that I was getting better and that I had Bill and that we were home and I didn't go back to work and I took care of her. And she died a year ago, right about now. And I took a month off and I just didn't think about food. I'm like, I have to have time to not think about food for like, I did not think about food. I thought about it like every 10 minutes. And I just had to have time. So I took all of August off and just tried not to think about it. And in September, I told myself I had to figure this out. I have to figure this out. And I began searching and scouring the internet for other ways to eat. And I went back to PJ. Now, because I had already had a stroke and I already had quadruple bypass open heart surgery, I didn't want PJ to know I was considering keto. Because I thought if I stroke out and die in the street, I don't want anybody connecting PJ with my great demise. I was like, I don't want him to feel responsible. I don't want anyone to know. So I didn't tell anybody because my doctor had already scared the crap out of me. I told Bill, I said, look, it took me 4 months to decide this. And even January 1st, I couldn't commit. It took me until January 21st to decide. I'm going to eat eat keto. This is the only answer. I can't find anything else. I have searched and searched and searched, and I've looked and looked. And I called the only 2 people I know eating keto, well 3, were Bev and PJ. And I gotta say, I'm sorry, but look at Bev and PJ. I mean, she's like a supermodel, and PJ has the body of a 12-year-old. 20-year-old.
12.
I haven't been through puberty yet.
Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe a 20-year-old. But he's like, they're totally ripped. I'm like, okay, I just can't relate. I'm sorry. I was like, I can't relate. I can't compare my situation to their situation. So I can't just do keto based on the fact that they do it. I have to find somebody else. And all I had this internet stuff, but it's the internet. You're like, well, I don't know. If I die on the street of a stroke or something, I'm in the hospital again, am I really going to feel good about saying, well, I read it on the internet? So Kim popped up, and Kim goes, oh, you know, my husband's been eating keto and since July, and he's lost 42 pounds. I was like, ding, 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 ding. So I began to ask Kim questions, and Kim asked Steve questions, and Steve answered the questions, and I was like, okay, this sounds like a normal person. Thanks for being my normal person, Steve.
They were too glamorous, you couldn't relate to them.
No.
Then the pressure was on us.
Right. All on this. I felt like, okay, I think I found my sweet spot, you know. I've got a couple of people in the win column, and I don't care about anybody else. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I've made my decision. I'm not discussing this. I don't want to talk to doctors. I don't want to talk to friends. I don't want to talk to anybody. I had Kim and Steve. I had Beege and Peege. I'm good. So I'm going forward. So January 22nd, and I cried. January 21st at night, I cried because I was like, this is really serious. I've already put, Bill through quite a bit, and I don't want to go through anymore. But I got up the next morning, and I ate my bacon and eggs, and I ate it in butter, and I added salt. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I began to eat keto, and I kept reading, and I kept, looking online. I want you guys to all make sure you get one of Tina and I's business cards. In fact, I'll hand them out now because on it are all these resources. I went to dietdoctor.com, and it sounds really bad, Diet Doctor, it sounds really, but he's Swedish, I don't know, it doesn't translate. But it's okay, it's a really good site, it's very comprehensive, it's got tons of stuff that I read through presentations and articles and medical journals, all these things, and I began to read through it, and there were interviews of various doctors and professors and people, and one of the doctors was Ed Naiman. He was a family practice doctor, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to hear what this person has to say because mine really, I just felt didn't give me great advice. So I watch him, and he says he was raised Seventh-day Adventist, and he was raised vegetarian. He actually graduated with an engineering degree, but when he got out of college with that degree, even Boeing was laying off. I don't know if you guys remember, that was like early 90s, mid 90s. Boeing was laying off massive people. Nobody in his class could even get a job. So he turned on a dime and went to medical school. And 4 years later, he comes out of medical school and he's doing his residency. He's a marathon runner. He's an exerciser. But with his shirt off, you'd be like, not really healthy. Because with clothes on, he looked fine. He was just kind of like your regular guy. But inside, he wasn't a healthy person. He was eating vegetables and carving up in order to run these marathons. And he knew he wasn't well. But because he wasn't taught anything dietary or nutrition-wise, that's my dog. Tina's eating meat in front of her.
No, I'm not.
And so he got out of medical school and he went to do his residency in South Carolina, which was extremely different than the Southern California medical school he went to. In South Carolina, he was met with obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and they just upped and upped and upped people's insulin levels and meds until they then amputated their feet, their toes, their legs, things like that. And he was like, wow, this is how it's done. He had never experienced that before. And when he questioned that, they were like, oh no, this is just their culture, it's just their DNA, it's how they are here, can't really do anything about it. And I thought, oh yeah, that's familiar. And he had a patient come in who had lost 30 pounds, and he was off his insulin because his blood sugar was dropping so low. And he was like, wait a minute, you're off your meds? How did you do that? And unlike, I think, so many doctors, he felt free to question a patient. He felt like, hey, I could learn something from this. How did you do that? And the guy said, oh, I found this book. It's by some guy named Atkins. And this is over 20 years ago. Atkins was talking about low carb. And he began to read about low carb dieting, and he did his thesis on macronutrients. And he knew that this was a key point. It was a key to losing weight and to controlling your blood sugar, was to get rid of the carbs. And so he began to kind of fly under the radar, he called it, in order to help people get off of their medication. His colleagues went the other direction. They were like, he probably had a heart attack in the parking lot, the guy's going to stroke out, you can't tell people this. And Dr. Neiman was like, yeah, whatever. So for the last 20 years, he's been a practicing physician and a metabolic specialist, and somebody that has helped people get off carbohydrates and burn fat rather than burning sugar. I loved him. I loved his talk. I loved his interview. I thought he was amazing. So I went and looked him up somewhere else and saw him interviewed by a woman who was talking about where they lived. And she said, oh, you and I are local. And he said, yeah, I have a family practice right outside of Seattle. I'm like, I'm sorry, did you say Seattle? Because I was alone. I mean, I felt so alone. I was 6 weeks into this, terrified that I'm plowing through butter and bacon and red meat, and I've had, all these problems. And I've been so alone. I didn't have anyone to go to, anybody to talk to about this. And here's this guy who's a doctor and gets this, and I'm sorry, you're in Seattle. I was telling PJ earlier, I'm like, I'd have driven to Montana. No, I'd have driven to New York. Where would I go? I would go anywhere. I would have gone almost anywhere to have a doctor that understood and could help me understand keto, could help me burn fat and not sugar, who could help me lose weight and control my body. And here he was, he's in his talk. And I cried. Bill came out and he goes, what's wrong with hygiene? I have a doctor. Tell I can go to about keto. I was like bawling, sobbing. Because you just, until you're in crisis, and you don't want to get to the point where you're in crisis. You don't, but you will. The bottom line is you will wind up in crisis if you continue to eat like your doctors and the food pyramid and the government tells you. So when I realized that I had a doctor, I called up, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope there's not a waiting list. I don't care, I'll do it. They were like, oh, he's got an opening on Tuesday. Oh my gosh, I'm crying again. The girl was like, said, you don't want the appointment? Sobbing. And so I went and saw him on March 9th. So I'm just going to pass it, but you guys don't have, I just wanted to be like very upfront and to like give you as much proof as possible, because that's what I wanted. I wanted proof. I wanted to be sure this was right. March 9th, I went and had, or March 8th, I went and had my blood taken for the first time at Virginia Mason in Issaquah with Dr. Neiman. When I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, hi. Hi. Bill goes, don't touch him. Bill goes, don't touch him. I'm like, why? Don't touch him, because you just want to, I just want to hug him.
She met her hero.
She was so
I was so excited. Oh my gosh.
And he's adorable to
He's
boot,
adorable.
so of course.
Yeah. So I was like, don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally know you. I totally know everything about you. I get it. I've been like, you for like 6 weeks. I've been doing this and this and this. I'm like, what do we do next? He goes, we take blood. I'm like, absolutely, take my blood, And so on March 8th, they took my blood, and the result, I'll just mention really quickly, my cholesterol was 251. Cholesterol, high cholesterol used to be 300, I think, and they just keep lowering, because the lower they make that, the sooner you're over it, the line, and then you need meds to get it down. So it was 251 in March, and as of May 25th, less than 3 months, 2.5 months, and my cholesterol came down to 202. So 202, that's 2 points higher than what they say cholesterol is, whatever. The bottom line is I came down 49 points eating bacon and butter and steak and salt. These are all the things I was warned against. These are all the things that they were threatening. My cholesterol would shoot through the roof. And I'm down 49 points. Same with my triglycerides. I was 101, and then I came down to 79. And so my hemoglobin A1C, that is your blood sugar level for 3 months. So if you took your blood sugar right now, your blood, you would test it again 3 months later, and that would be what they call your A1C, 3 months of your blood sugar levels. So when I went I was in the hospital for my heart attack, or not heart attack, heart surgery. It was 6.3. So that's 0.3 higher than normal. If they had said, oh, if you just cut out carbs, it will drop. You know, that would have been helpful to know. And as of March 8th, it was 7.6, so it had actually gone up. But as of May 25th, it's down to 5.6. I'm within the normal range. And they don't tell you you'll ever be normal again. They say, here's your kit, here's your drugs, you are diabetic. And that is your identity, and this is what you're dependent on now. And they will just keep giving it to you, and giving it to you, and giving it to you, until your insulin level, until you're shooting yourself up. Metformin, that was the drug I was on. Metformin is just an oral drug. I would have had to have been switched to insulin. My mom had to give herself insulin shots. I had to give her insulin shots. The insulin, you had to measure it every day. You had to look at your blood sugar. It is a burden. And they want you to be burdened. Because it's cha-ching, 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 every strip, every shot, every needle, every dose. It is big business. It is like $3 billion a year. In the United States alone, that's what diabetes makes every year, $3 billion. And it's climbing, I mean, worldwide. 52% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic. That's over half. And I bet there are way more undiagnosed, because you can go for a long time lying to yourself. So these things, I guess I became like so passionate about it after I did keto for, it's been 6 months now. I dropped 40 pounds. That had never happened. I mean, you see these pictures. I was working my butt off to lose 2 pounds, 10 pounds, anything. And in the last few months, I've lost 40 pounds, and my numbers are all good. I don't have any of these problems my doctor warned me about. I feel better than I've ever felt. And I gotta say, I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I was eating vegetables up the wazoo, trying to be healthy. I was eating fruit. I was eating carrots. And here all along, I needed to eat meat. So I'm not going to go into like all the details of meat and how much I love it and why it's basically the perfect food along with, eggs. But I will say that Tina has been my right-hand woman since I've been on keto, and has been super helpful. And she's just as excited as I am, because we've been through a couple of serious medical issues. So we started a YouTube channel a few weeks ago. We call it Steak and Eggs. And we just want to talk to people about this. We just want them to know. It seems so simple, and when you think about how many people don't realize how easy it is. Like, if I could do it for a few months and lower all these things and change my body composition and lose weight, anybody can do that. It's been so easy. So that's why I wanted...
Are you exercising?
I rarely exercise. I go to the gym so I try to do the same thing that PJ taught me. I go to the gym, I do my 21 minutes of resistance to failure, and I try to do it great, and I think about PJ when I'm there, because I'm kind of easy on myself. PJ was never easy on me. In fact, PJ would stand on the weights. He'd be like, yeah, I don't think that's heavy enough. And he'd like stand on the weights, and he'd like go like this. So I do exercise a couple times a week. I haven't lately because it's been summer and my schedule's been different, but I'm not anti-exercising. I love it. It allows me to run with my dog in the woods, this way of eating. So I think I'm naturally more active. I swim all the time.
Why do you mean it allows you? Because you have more energy or something?
Right. I have way more energy. I just feel better. I am not as inflamed. I think inflammation is a huge problem. I think everything we put in our mouths, affects us somehow, and inflammation is a huge problem. I couldn't, do deep knee bends. I couldn't bend over. I couldn't reach for things. It was a struggle. It was painful, and I don't feel any of those things anymore. And yeah, then you have more energy to play. So I'm going to let PJ take over from here, and you guys can ask him questions. I just am so thankful for you guys. I just really appreciate you. Oh, thank you.
get these pictures side by side and get a picture of this, because this is some powerful stuff right here. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Just to see that. I don't know if the camera, it's a 4K, so I can zoom in and post before and after. There's some crazy stuff right there. So, thanks so much for that. Wow, that's such a great story. And just to start with where you left off, the exercise, you know, I own a couple gyms, I invented some methodology and stuff like that, to save people time and all this. But you know what it comes down to is exercise is anything. It's anything that gets your heart rate up and your breathing rate up. And it can be activities, it can be fun stuff. You know, you've got the best gym right there, just swimming your heart out there. Anything that gets to a heart rate where you're breathing hard is good enough. It doesn't have to be complete fatigue. That's my thing, because it's a great way to get a lot of equivalent exercise in a very short amount of time. So for super busy people. But if I lived here, I'd be out there all the time. The thing with, just a little side note, the thing with swimming though, is it's the one form of exercise that will make you, it'll increase your appetite instead of decrease it like all the other forms of exercise.
How come?
Yeah,
And that's
aerobic
that's
definitely
something to be
increases it.
that's something to be careful of. And the reason for that is, well, they don't really know, but the best theories are that there's a buoyancy aspect to it, and so your body's naturally saying, well, let's make, because it always wants to make things easier. It wants to make exercise easier, activities easier. It wants to get shortcuts. It's built to conserve energy. And so one way to make this easier and to conserve energy is to be more buoyant. So one of the theories is, let's go eat more after we did just this activity to make it easier, to gain some fat, to be more buoyant, to do more of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
And one of the most interesting studies that I saw was where it wasn't even swimming, it was cycling. Half the group was cycling in the pool with water up to their neck, and the other half was on the deck of the pool, and they compared the two groups. The group in the pool was ravenously hungry, and the group on the deck had an appetite suppressant effect. They were less hungry after the exercise. Same exercise, same intensity, same everything. One group was in the water, one group wasn't. But that's the theory that they have anyway. So it's just something to be mindful of. And then when you do get hungry, not if, but when, to eat protein and just eat keto, eat more of that stuff, and that's fine. Because swimming also makes you hungrier specifically for carbs, for fattening things. Because the theory is trying to fatten you up to be more buoyant, so it's easier to do that activity. Anyways.
Talk about your hunger thing, like the numbers, the range for getting hungry and when you start to feel hungry, and then how long to go until you eat, and then to eat back down to when you hunger.
Yes. So she's talking about the hunger scale. It's one of the brain training techniques I came up with to help people with struggles. Because a lot of people don't really understand their physical hunger. Because it's emotional. Most hunger is emotional. And we confuse it with physical. And so just to kind of get an objective measure on that, to use a hunger scale. And I typically weight, so a 0 is just full, you're in pain because you overate, it's just too full. A 10 is you could eat your own arm off, you know, you're that hungry. And 9 is just like, I'm starving, oh my gosh. So I wait until I'm a 6 or a 7 before I eat. So I'm hungry, but I'm not hangry, or it's not urgent. And then I eat till I'm down to about a 4. So I'm still hungry, but just a little bit. And then it takes 20 to 30 minutes for the hunger mechanism to kick in anyways. So then 30 minutes later, after I'm at a 4, I'm now at a 2 or a 3, which isn't hungry. It's satisfying. It's not full, but it's satisfying. And I'm happy. I'm content. And that's the goal, is to get to content. But you gotta back off a little bit before you get there, because there's that delay. And so that's the hunger scale, is just to ask yourself, well, what am I really? Physically, what am I? What does my stomach tell me right now? Not my brain telling me I'm hungry. what does my tummy feel? Get the physical sensations, and now rate it 0 to 10, and see what that's like. So that's that technique. And blood work is really interesting. And it's great that you went on the cholesterol thing, because total cholesterol is meaningless. Don't even worry about what that number is. It has nothing to do with health. In fact, there have been no studies, not one, that has tied high cholesterol total number to heart disease. There have been studies that show that heart disease risk is increased with cholesterol that's too low, but not too high. So back in the day when I didn't know any better, I thought, cholesterol was bad, and so I worked really hard on getting my cholesterol down, and I got it down to like 145, and I'm like, wow, I'm so proud, this is great, and you're super healthy. Now I know that was getting to the point where I was heading towards heart disease risk. So I was getting down too low. So now I'm proud to say I'm up over 200. I've been trying really hard to get it up. And that sounds bad.
We'll talk to her later. Don't worry about it.
Or not.
Right. So in Japan and European physicians that are more progressive than ours in this country, that are brainwashed to sell drugs. I mean, most of them aren't sinister. They're not trying to make you unhealthy. They're just brainwashed, and they just don't know any better.
That's all they.
Because they haven't researched it themselves. But the progressive doctors outside of the country think that getting below 200 is unhealthy. Cholesterol is good for you. It lines every single cell in our body, and we have to have it. And so they're trying to get their patients up to 200 or 250 to get to that optimal level. And they're not worried until their people are over 400, because then it could be a potential sign of inflammation. But even there, total cholesterol is a lousy indicator of pretty much everything. What's important is the triglycerides, and even more important is the VLDLs that hardly anyone ever gets tested. And the medical community doesn't actually want us to know to ask for VLDL test, because that is the best indicator of heart disease. Because VLDL stands for very low density lipoprotein. They're the tiny little LDLs, because the regular LDLs are too big to clog up the arteries. They just float on by. And the thing that starts heart disease is inflammation. It's not cholesterol. Inflammation starts, and then because of that inflammation, the arteries start to get cracks in them, in the walls. And then the cholesterol comes by as a Band-Aid, and it wants to fix you. And the liver, of course, is pumping out more cholesterol because you're inflamed, because it's pumping out more Band-Aids, and it wants to help you and fix you. Because the body wants to be better. The body wants to be healthy and wants to be well. If it's not, it's because we're not giving it the tools to do that. So the inflammation, the cracks, the cholesterol is floating by, that's pumped out by the liver, and the VLDLs are the things that are small enough to fit in those cracks. LDL is so big, it's the bigger fluffy kind, it can't fit, it just floats by. Even if it tried to fit in, it couldn't, it's too big. So the LDL isn't a big issue. VLDL is part of LDL reading, but that's why it's important to get that specific test to see where they are. And if they're low, then great, there's not a problem. And there's an inflammation test you can get too, general inflammation. And the best one is the high sensitivity C-reactive protein test, instead of just the CRP. So that's another one that they don't think to give you, and a lot of people don't know to ask for. So my two favorite tests are the VLDL and the HCRP. I think those are the best indicators of your health, inflammation, and potential for heart disease, if that's what you're concerned with. And then the blood sugar test is also really important, because it can be more than 3 months. It can be up to 6 months. So as you keep getting that test, you're going to see it come back down. Because the cool thing with keto is, because there's a memory. I mean, there's a memory in your tissues and in your blood, and that's what it's testing, is the memory of your body going back and seeing where it remembers those spikes. It's really testing spikes. And so when people go to the Cheesecake Factory and they pig out on the bread and the cheesecake, that's where they go, right? they're getting that huge spike. And then that's stored in your body's memory database. And then when you go get that test, that's what it's showing you, is how many big spikes you've had. So, and that can go 6 months or sometimes even longer if somebody's been that way for a long time. So nobody really knows how long it is, but it's a history. And so every time you get that test now, you're going to see that number go down, because now that you're keto, your blood sugar's like this all the time. And it's none of this anymore. And when people are doing this, the standard American diet with lots of carbs and sugar, they get hangry. The spikes are hangry. And you get urgent. You're like, oh my gosh, I have to eat. This is incredible. I'm gonna hit somebody, because it is an emotional thing, because it's an urgent situation. But when you keto, it's nothing. In fact, I mentioned the hunger scale. I never get over a 7 anymore, and an 8, a 9 is hangry, and 8 is bordering, like, okay, I'm gonna get hangry pretty soon, but you're not quite there. I never even get there. I never experience hangry anymore, because I'll max out at a 7, and then I'll just kind of stay there. And I even know that a 7 I'm not going to be there forever, and I'll come back down. So my main reason for doing keto is convenience. Same with Bev, because we never get hangry, we don't have to have food. And so if we have a really busy day, or we'll forget our lunch, or we're on the road or something, we're not looking for an urgent place to stop off and get some food, because we never get there. So we can just go about our business. We go, oh, I'm hungry. Okay, I'll get some food at some point. And that's the most urgent it ever gets. We can go for a day or two, and we're just kind of 7, 5, 7, 6, 7, 5, 7. And that's not an urgent issue. It's not a problem.
What is it about keto that allows you to do that?
It's because it's really one of the few diets where you become what they call fat adapted. And so you've switched over your primary fuel source from glucose to fat. 99% of the people in this country, the people walking around the street out there, are glucose, sugar burners. And that's the standard American diet. And the body can't store much of that. It can only store about 15 miles worth if you're a runner or a walker or whatever it is for distance. Or, after a couple hours, it's low enough that you start to feel different. Because the blood can store only a little bit, the muscles can store only a little bit, and the liver can store a little bit, and you run out. But when you switch over to become a fat burner, there's lots of fat stores. Even on somebody like me, I've got 300 miles worth of fat on me right now. I could run that far and I'd be just fine. Because it's such a high calorie fuel source. It's like the super octane fuel source. It's a better fuel source. 9 calories per gram. Sugar is 4 calories per gram. You can't store very much of that. But I've got thousands of calories of fat on me right now. I bounce between 7 and 9% body fat at any given moment. And I've still got 300 miles worth of fuel on me. Whereas if I was a sugar burner and I went for a marathon, it's about the point of the half marathon when most people bonk. And the bonk they feel is because they've run out of sugar. And now their body has been forced into fat burning. They have to switch over. And then it just feels like they ran out of gas because their body doesn't know how to burn fat. But once you become fat adapted, your body learns how to burn that fat. All of our cells, our mitochondria inside the cell, is a hybrid engine. And that's the engine, little mechanism inside the cell. That's what gives us energy. And it uses oxygen, and then it pairs that with sugar or fat to burn for energy. Because most people are sugar burners, the mitochondria only knows how to burn sugar and oxygen together. But when you become keto and fat adapted, and you've made that conversion, now the mitochondria knows how to burn fat. It always does, but it just kind of forgets because we always have so much sugar and glucose in our system all the time that it just says, well, I prefer to use this because it's just right here, it's a quick fuel source, and there's not actually any extra work. But when you go keto and you force yourself to convert over to fat burning, then it says, oh, okay, I guess I'm using this now because there's no more sugar anymore. And then it becomes easy. And then the magical thing happens is that's what it prefers, because fat is a cleaner fuel. When the mitochondria is burning sugar, the byproducts or the exhaust coming from that engine is dirty. And there's inflammation, there's toxins and things that are released because it's burning this dirty fuel. Fat is a clean fuel. It's like natural gas. And so it burns that, and it doesn't kick off all that gross exhaust. So it's a healthier fuel to burn too. And it realizes that over time. And it says, okay, great. Oh, I guess I was forced into this. Now I'm glad, because it's a cleaner fuel source. And it's more plentiful. Your blood sugar is normal. No diabetes. And I'm sure we're going to see on the documentary, other diseases like cancer, because cancer cells have to have sugar. I mentioned all the healthy cells in the human body are hybrid engines. They're designed to burn both fuel sources. Cancer cells can't do that. They can only burn glucose. So you take the sugar away and they starve. And so this is what they're finding with people who have cancer or don't want to get it, is they go keto and the cancer goes away, especially tumor cancer. It hasn't been completely proven with some of the other cancers, blood cancer and things like that.
I was listening to a guy at work talk about his dog. They did that with his dog, and the cancer went away. And I was shortly after you and I had talked for that first time. And I kind of piped up, I go, well, that same thing works for humans too. And he's like, what? No.
Yeah.
And it's like, why wouldn't you make that connection? It makes sense to me, but I just thought it was funny. Okay, well, your dog, they can kill cancer in your dog, but not you.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, going back to what Jen said, we're so, from a very, very, very young age, we're so conditioned and we're bombarded with the media, with doctors, with school. I don't want to sound all jaded or anything, but at the end of the day, we have to advocate for ourselves, and we have to be really, honestly, in my opinion, our own doctors, and be able to decipher what's true and what's not true. And Peege and I always tell people, we don't look at American studies. We go outside of the country to see what works in Europe and Japan and other countries, and then we can make those correlations. And I think comparing, obviously we don't want to always compare, things to animals, but at the end of the day, if it works on a rat, or a dog, it's pretty, but I'm sure that your coworker or your workmate, he's like, oh, well, I'm going to go home and eat from the food pyramid. I'm going to go home and have my, my toast, and, marathon runner is going to have his, Pro Max bar or whatever he's going to have, because he's just conditioned.
Bananas.
Yeah, bananas.
Yeah.
We love it. We do stair climbing sometimes. We'll always see bananas and, nature way bars and all this stuff. And it's just like, until you have, and I love, Jen, that you shared your experience, until you have a life-changing experience, I think people just gravitate. People are human. We all just kind of gravitate towards that norm, if you will. And so more power to Jen for listening to her own body and accepting the fact that, wow, okay, well, what everybody else is doing isn't working for me. Clearly your body, in my opinion, I think our bodies speak to us louder than words, right? If you're,
I'm so glad you had a quadruple bypass, Jen. I'm so glad, because you're healthier for it now.
Well, and the
Take
thing
a hit for you.
with Jen is, she made the courageous decision to try something that scared the heck out of her. She tried everything else. Nothing else was working. So like, all
What
right,
inspired you to get into keto back in the day?
just to try something. I've tried it all, like Jen, and not because I needed weight to lose or anything like that, but because I love research, I love new stuff, and I'm going to try it on me first, then I'll try it on friends and family that I know won't sue me. Then I'll try it on some trainers, and then I'll try it on some members, and there's lots of stages of the experimental process that I go through. But
So it was back in like 2007 you tried it?
You make that sound like
time ago is when did
Couple
you,
of
5 years
years
ago is
ago.
when we were first talking about it.
Yeah.
How long have I been keto?
We've been keto, you've been, I would say the research started around 2000, the end of 2011, like right when we started to make fitness chocolate.
Yeah.
And then it really, it was into turbo gear in 2013.
Okay.
And so, but in answer to your question, Gwen, what he won't say is that he is a true entrepreneur. He is a scientist. He is a researcher. But really, I think if I can speak for him, he loves to help people. And so when one thing doesn't work, he wants to be on the cutting edge of what is new. What's he kind of goes, I would say, in my opinion, kind of against the fads. So he'll do kind of the opposite of what Atkins is doing, or the opposite of what South Beach is. But I think for what I've seen, knowing him almost a decade now, we just want to help people and provide solutions that might not be. We're very unconventional and untraditional. So I would say that would be. And he just loves research.
What else? Another thing I'll say is, yeah, totally.
Hot one.
I think keto's great. I think a lot of other diets are great too. Keto's not for everybody, and keto actually doesn't work very well for some people. Everybody's different. You gotta find what works best for you.
Doesn't it work well for?
Well, there are some women that struggle with obese. Anyone who's obese is going to lose weight on keto, but some are going to lose more than others, just depending on hormones and history and stuff like that. So,
potatoes.
what's that?
I said potatoes.
Potatoes? What about that?
That's my downfall.
That's
Okay.
our subject outside is her.
Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah.
And after PJ's done, remind me, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marge.
Yes.
So, you gotta try it to see, and because we don't really know, because everyone is so different. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and I think there's 3 billion different kinds of metabolisms. I mean, it's that unique, and so you gotta try it. And some people respond really well to South Beach, and if they respond better to that to keto, I say go for it. Don't buy their foods because they're all processed foods. But the concept behind it is good. Atkins, the concept behind it is good, except they're not really whole food organic as much as we should be. They say just, go get bacon. They don't specify whether it should be nitrate free or organic.
Paleo too.
Paleo, I like paleo too, and that works better for some people
It's not higher
than
carb.
keto.
Low
It
fat.
can be. Paleo is way lower carb than the standard American diet.
How do, my life follows very much what hers did, Jennifer's, only I had cancer. How does that work with both? Does the keto have a good outcome for people with cancer or
Yep.
heart
Yeah.
disease?
It's the best. I am confident, I say it with lots of confidence, keto is the best diet, hands down, for people with
Because I
cancer.
can't live in.
Because it's the lowest carb diet. There's a lot of low carb diets out there, and I'm a fan of all of them. I think they're great, and I think people should just keep trying. As long as you're sticking with a low carb diet, can't go wrong. Just find the one that works best for you.
Maybe we need to
But-
define keto.
Keto is the best. We do. Keto is the best for cancer because it's the lowest carb. In cancer fuel, it can only live on glucose, sugar. It can only take the sugar away, cancer goes away.
Yeah,
The tumor cancer, the growth
talking
cancer.
about her body, talking to her, mine did the same thing. You do say, okay, now what? What is this? How come I'm feeling this way? And
Yep. Now, going back to another reason I got into keto is because of the brain research I've done since the year 2000, when my mom got diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So I threw myself into brain research. I had already been researching, exercise science and nutrition science before that. But then I kind of added that part, and it's just fascinating. And keto's the best for that too. Keto's the best for Alzheimer's, for other neurological conditions like Parkinson's, MS, other neurodegenerative diseases.
And diabetes.
Oh yes, yes. Because it's the lowest carb. But the reason that it's so good for the neurological diseases is because it's high fat, and if you do it right, not like Atkins, where they don't really specify the kinds of fats, but healthy keto does specify good fats and bad fats. So in Atkins, theoretically, you could have soybean oil, and you could have, the vegetable oils. Canola is the worst, those kinds of things, which are all really inflammatory, which is bad for the brain.
Can you explain that? Can you explain why those oils, what do you mean? What do you mean by they're inflammatory? You eat them and then they make your body inflamed inside?
Yeah. Anything that humans are ingesting that isn't meant to be ingested by humans is inflammatory.
Oh, okay.
So the vegetable oils are in that category. You can't go anywhere in nature without a processing plant and find a vegetable oil. You have to eat the vegetable. And the amount of oil in that vegetable is so low, and it's in a natural state, it hasn't been pumped through a plant, and it's got a whole bunch of other things in it, like fiber and things. You're eating it all together the way it's intended. But you take that vegetable, you squeeze all the oil out of it, you throw all the fiber and nutrients away, and then you put it through a processing plant, and what comes out, we have no business putting in our bodies. And that's inflammatory. When you get a splinter in your hand, it turns red, it gets sore, it swells up. That's inflammation, because the splinter has no business being inside your body. Okay? Same thing with vegetable oil from a processing plant. It's inflammatory.
And when I explain this to people, I also explain that anything that's inflammatory, your body, you look at GMO, which is a whole nother topic, it enters the body and it's foreign, and so I like to describe it, and correct me if I'm wrong, your body goes, and then it's boom, fat. It just turns to fat. Yep. And then I was actually, right when I met Peege, I had leaky gut. So GMO,
leaky gut syndrome.
Leaky gut syndrome. So it's basically when your body basically are eating a whole bunch of processed food, GMO, a whole bunch of foreign things, and it creates microscopic, you can't see them, it creates microscopic tears in the lining of your stomach and leaks out all of those toxins into your body. So your body's like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? How do I process? What do I do? How do I sleep? What's normal? And so that's when you find people, kids are a great example of this with like medicine. Oh God, I could go on. But when people say, oh, well, I'm allergic to gluten. Gluten's a great example. I'm allergic to eggs now, and I have to be careful. I'm now sensitive to eggs or whatever, because the body's like, oh, well, I'm this egg floating around in your bloodstream and floating around in your body, and it's like, oh, well, what is this?
So you have to heal the leaky gut first in order to be able to eat those things again,
Yes.
right?
Because what's getting through the gut barrier shouldn't be getting through it.
Right.
And it's getting into your bloodstream.
Undigested food that gets into the bloodstream.
And
that's a foreign invader.
Does keto heal the leaky gut?
Yes.
Among other things like eating whole foods and whole vegetables.
Right.
Is
And
that
eating
a really
like,
clean diet?
along
Along the line of
Yeah.
diverticulitis?
I think that's
It isn't.
your GI tract
Yeah.
instead of your stomach.
But that is definitely related to inflammation.
Yeah.
So remember when I was talking about the little cracks in the arteries? Well, we get little holes in the gut. It's the same thing. It's inflammation. And then undigested food gets through those holes, and the body sees it as a splinter, a foreign invader. So you just ate a whole plate full of splinters every time you're eating something like that. We already have leaky gut, and it's inflammatory to boot. And then the body's just like, wow, okay, we got to take care of this. And the immune system is trying to help you. That's what inflammation is. When you sprain your ankle or you get a cut or something, it's a good thing. Inflammation isn't bad initially, but when it's chronic and every day, it gets worse and worse and worse, and then other things get put on hold, like losing weight, like growing hair, and then you're unhealthy because you're in this constant state of inflammation. The body is in this state of, let's take care of this inflammation that's gone overboard and not do all these peripheral nice things that we would rather have being done. And even acne is another sign of inflammation because you're detoxing the body, trying to get rid of those splinters that you ate, and that's one of the symptoms of that. So all these things, and people come back with, with these keto stories and other diets that are low inflammatory diets, and with these great stories of skin clearing up and all this energy, and I can see better, and I've got this mental clarity, and my memory's coming back, and all this stuff, which is pretty exciting.
Is age a factor in it? Because from the time I hit 60 to now, I'm 68, I have gone from medium to huge. I'm diabetic, diverticulosis, all sorts of things. Eating in the 50s is entirely different than now.
Yep.
Is it from what I was raised with to now that's gotten me here?
Yes. It's been a life of inflammation. And I went through that too, because I used to be a sugar addict, junk food junkie, right up until my 30s, really. I was eating that stuff. And so 30 years of high inflammation takes its toll.
Mm-hmm.
The more years of that, the more toll it's going to take.
Again, if you heal it all.
But you can reverse this.
Yeah, you reverse it
yes.
and heal it.
And so the things that Jennifer was experiencing was a life of inflammation.
She was.
Now she's turning that around.
Ooh.
And inflammation ages you faster too. So
Yeah.
being low inflammatory, whatever diet you choose, if it's a low inflammatory diet, it's great because now you're turning back the clock and you're aging slower, or even in reverse. I mean, I have a picture of my driver's license. I kept my driver's license from when I was in my 30s, when I started my quest for being really healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like I aged in reverse. Every 5 years I'd get a new picture and just looking younger. I was turning back the clock because of what I was doing with getting the inflammation down and health up. The body wants to be healthy.
Processed foods.
Right, that's very inflammatory.
Anything that's in a can, I mean not anything, but like chili in a can, or hamburgers or tacos from Taco Bell or Taco Time, or it's all bad for you. It's just all going to cause inflammation.
But Gwen, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on your question of whether keto is the best quote unquote diet, and I think Beege and I have done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people, and on the extreme, I think Beege and I have an infographic of kind of all of the different healthy kind of low carb diets. So you talk about primal, you talk about paleo, keto. Keto is of the extreme, on the far extreme. So when people say, well, that's way too extreme for me. Like I can't cook food prep every day or whatnot. So we kind of tell people, do what's best for you, and you don't have to go, tomorrow right into ketosis. In fact, you won't go right into ketosis. It takes months for most people to get into ketosis. I have friends of mine who are like, oh yeah, I'm keto, and I don't have the heart to say to them, no, you're not. Oh, I mean, fat every day. No, you're not. We have these little, in fact, I'm actually going to bring out this is another cool thing about being married to Peege, is that he, every so often, will find these cool little tools. I should just carry this around in my purse and be like, yo, you should, if you're really in ketosis, why don't you blow in this little straw? I'll let Peege explain this.
This is actually a lie detector. This measures the ketones in your breath, and when people at the X Gym come and they say, I'm just not getting any results, I'm just not losing the weight, but I'm totally keto 100% all the time, every single day. It's okay. Well, that's weird. So let's come blow on this machine. And then as we're walking over to the machine, then the confessions start. Okay, maybe not 100%. Okay, maybe I had ice cream last night. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
So
that's,
is that what that is that people talk about? Those
We
are the
try that.
Measuring things?
Yeah.
yeah, we could try it. Absolutely.
First, can you do?
You change the straws, right?
I did.
He's a germaphobe, so yeah,
I
we're
want
not
to
gonna be like,
straw.
okay.
Because, you know,
I should have had to do that. But thank you for bringing up the point about that, all the different diets, because what I want to do here is to pass this around. And do you have what's your Wi-Fi? You have Wi-Fi in this house here?
I do.
I should get on your.
How much do those machines cost?
This is only $100. Yeah.
And then this machine, who I think we are pretty sure it's made out of like a guy's garage. But who cares, right? It's technology. Who cares? But we do a lot of tests. You know, blood sugar on both of us. We'll do blood sugar. We'll do ketones and a few other tests. But anyway, we feel that this is the most accurate. It's $100.
Did you get it online or?
Yeah.
Is it more accurate than blood testing?
Keto, I think, is people are still very apprehensive, and so we have conversations with people all the time. Oh, well, what about this? What about this? You know, or why this? Why that? And they're still just apprehensive. So.
And the reason is because doctors are still saying it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then my response is, well, they're just repeating what they've been told, and they're being told that by their drug reps, because when people go keto, they get off drugs, and then the drug companies aren't making money anymore, and they're not getting cancer, and their diabetes is going away. And so again, it's just any low-carb diet is going to do that, but I think keto is the easiest to do that with, and it's the yummiest in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's the only diet, and I tell everybody this, that's considering keto, it's actually the only one of all the popular diets, the mainstream, the things that we hear about, where you have to be 100%. You can't be 95% good on keto. Because if you have that cheat day, especially in the beginning when you're trying to convert over to fat adapted, you have that cheat day, or even that cheat meal for some people, boom, you're out again. And then next week, you can go a whole week and you're still out. And then and you have that cheat meal and you're keeping yourself out. And it can actually be fattening for people that are 90% good, because it's a high-fat diet. And then when they're coming out and they're getting the sugar, then all that, that they're in storing mode again, and then all the fat gets sucked in. And so I tell people, if you don't even consider it unless you're ready to commit 100%, no exceptions.
Why doesn't the Diabetes Association, because I went from pills to insulin, following their diet, why don't they do this?
It's a great question.
It's the
It's a
same
million-dollar
story.
question.
There's no money
Well,
in
they're
that.
killing people then.
Hey, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
Amen,
making a
sister.
killing.
They are killing people.
And making them go blind, all sorts of good things.
Yep.
I had this conversation with one of my friends who's a nurse who takes care of people, diabetics, who are now bedridden because they had both feet chopped off. Next is their arm.
Her ex-mother-in-law is going that way.
Yeah. And this nurse has this conversation, because she's enlightened, she knows the truth. And she has this conversation with these people. And most of them are like, I know, but I just can't do it. I can't kick the sugar habit because it's such an addiction. It's so powerful that they would, next is their arm, they know their arm's coming off.
So if you can quit smoking, you can do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sugar is the most addictive substance on the planet. Worse than heroin, worse than but it's easier to kick. It's
When you're satisfied.
yeah. So you don't have the extreme cold turkey symptoms of heroin. And after 2 weeks, the body isn't addicted anymore, but the brain might be. So you might still be addicted to what it does. 2 weeks is all it takes for the body to get rid of the sugar addiction.
But Margie, so when I first met Peege almost 10 years ago, I was also addicted to, like everybody in the world, I think, is addicted to sugar. because it's rampant and it's in everything. And
Yeah.
he comes to me and he goes, "Oh, I can make you go off sugar." I'm like, "Buddy," I was 26 at the time, whatever I was. Like, my mom has been feeding me sugar and brownies and Oreos, and every night I would have a pint of ice cream with gummy bears, right? I was like, "Good luck, buddy." So I said, so we go, and he's like, "Oh, well, I'll just brain train you." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, we're Christian. I'm like, "What is this guy, woo-woo?" I'm like, "I'm not into this woo-woo stuff, okay?" I'm like, "Let's be normal here, guy." So anyway, long story short, I brain trained, so we have different techniques to help you get off sugar and carbs. So he literally activated neurological pathways in my brain that had been ingrained in my brain for 26 or 27 years.
Yeah.
And we do the setup, it's called emotional freedom technique. We did the whole setup, blah, blah, blah. And Mark, I tell you, from that day forward, of course you have to take one habit with another. So for the next month, for the next 3 days, I had no sugar, no carbs, no nothing. I thought I was going to kill him. That was no joke. The most, I would say, I don't have an addictive personality at all whatsoever. That was the
Well,
worst.
you think you don't, but you do, all of us.
Oh, for sure. It was absolutely miserable. But once it took me 3 days, it takes other people different amounts of times. But then for the next month, I would eat Chobani ice cream, cinnamon, walnuts, and stevia. So to your question,
You ate what ice cream?
Chobani yogurt. So it's a Greek yogurt.
I love Greek yogurt.
So it's a plain, no sugar Greek yogurt that was amazing. And so I would have blueberries and strawberries, and I would just every time I had a craving for the next month, I tell people I probably spend thousands of dollars on strawberries.
But no granola.
No. But then I learned how to make my own granola.
That's what I have for milkshake in the morning.
What do you have?
A Greek yogurt and some fruit and almond coconut milk.
Okay, so and when I hear that, then my next question is, are they sugar free, or are they plain?
Yeah, no sugar.
No sugar. Okay, so that's actually good.
Except for the strawberries, bananas, whatever.
Well, okay, so and now we get into the glycemic index of bananas. I love how Jen has her
Yeah.
sugar cubes and stuff. So it's a whole, Margie, this isn't something that happens overnight. I mean, Peach and I have done, he's done decades and decades and decades of research. It's not something that we just boom, it happens overnight. We on a daily basis, we're educating ourselves and we're reading labels. We're going to the store. We're buying whole foods. We're not buying processed foods.
Well, with the diabetes side, that's what I have been doing. I, in essence, don't really buy stuff that's pre-mixed.
So, what did you say? The diabetes website? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry.
The diet that they gave me.
Yeah.
If God didn't make it, don't eat it.
Yeah,
That's a
good general rule.
yeah.
Don't eat sugar.
Yeah, right. So, speaking of sugar, think of 1,000 years ago. So they weren't able to extract sugar from the cane and then use it in stuff. Sugar in its natural form, has a big woody outer part. It's a stick, and sugar's on the inside. And back in the day, people that worked on the sugar plantations would actually eat it, but they ate the stick part too.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and lots of fiber. And so that wasn't fattening. But as soon as you extract the inside and you throw all that fiber away, and that wood part away, now it's fattening. So, yes, God made sugar.
He made honey too.
And if we're supposed to eat sugar, then let's eat the stick part too, which isn't very fun.
Yes.
I tried it, it's not.
But Margie,
Same thing with fruit and all that.
Honey.
So
She just said honey.
Right. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with honey either.
in moderation.
But you can't eat too much of it. Yeah. Like Beth said, with our faith and our belief, anything that God recommends, we think is fine. And when he promised the Israelites the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey, well, obviously milk and honey isn't bad, so I'm fine with it. But too much, yes, then it's sugar, and you're just pounding down that. And back in the day, the Israelites weren't gorging on honey. They were eating lots of other things, and they were raising the cows, which is a lot of work that the milk was coming out of. And they were running around. They didn't have cars. They didn't have computers to sit at all day. And so it was completely different. Milk and honey was fine. We don't drink milk or eat honey. But
in answer to your question directly about honey, so there's a glycemic index for sugar. 0 would be stevia, your lohans, your erythritol, and then you go to xylitol. So in someone who has diabetes, you want to keep your glycemic level down.
Stevia.
So stevia, yeah.
Stevia, and I don't do honey, but a lot of people say, oh, well, then you can do honey. It's still sugar.
Right.
And
honey.
Honey is actually, I actually just looked it up yesterday. I think on the glycemic index from 0 to 100, it's 82. So, however, I just had this conversation with a friend of mine at work yesterday. She goes, well, what if I just have like a teaspoon in my tea or coffee or whatever, what have you? Well, obviously, a teaspoon won't raise your glycemic index, but once you get the higher the glycemic index, and the more you use, correct me if I'm wrong, the faster your blood is going to kick you into fat storing mode. So, and we always tell people, yes, everything in moderation, but at the same time, we're all human. And if you're not militant about measuring things, it's just easier to just go with the things that are safe, like stevia, erythritol, lohan, and other things. But
Is there a list somewhere?
Yes, in fact, I have one.
Oh, how about that?
And that's actually from the Beege and Peege standpoint. When we first met, I didn't cook at all. He was the cook, and he would whip up some eggs and some julienne bread at the time, and I was like, oh, this is good. So as I continued on my journey, that's where I kind of got into the whole, people would ask me questions about, oh, well, what about this and what about that? And so my specialty is substitutions. So I'll take a recipe, our friends give me recipes all the time. So I'll take a lasagna, I'll take a brownie recipe or a chocolate recipe or whatever recipe you can muster up and give it to me. Then I take it and I'll replace potatoes with parsnips, or I'll replace it with... Exactly. So for every bad thing, for the most part, there is always a good thing, or you can make it a good thing. So for like potatoes, I don't know what.
I don't eat that many, but one, like I was telling him, when I want one, I'll kill.
Well, anyway, there are different things, and again, different depending on, like tomorrow if you wake up and you're like, God has blessed me, I'm going to go paleo, right? Well, paleo has different restrictions than keto. So on a traditional paleo diet, you could do sweet potatoes, you could do parsnips, you could do a more of a resistant starch that is not going to send your body into fat storing mode so quickly.
Well, and I have to say that one of the things I've had to change, and I think that it's good in all areas, is to tell myself the truth. And I was standing in line at Starbucks a couple months ago, and I was waiting for a friend, and the woman behind me and I began to chat, and my friend came in and stood behind her, so the three of us were talking. And as we got up to the front and I ordered my drink, I ordered a latte with heavy whipping cream. And the woman behind me said, oh, I wish I could do that. And I said, well, what stops you from doing that? And she said, oh my gosh, the calories. And I said, well, I don't count calories, I count carbs. And I try to avoid carbs, but I eat high fat so that I can avoid carbs. I'm very satisfied having the fat, but it will kill me to eat the carbs. And she goes, wait a minute, you don't eat carbs? And I said, yeah. She goes, so like no bread? I'm like, no bread. She goes, what about rice? I'm like, no rice. She's like, pasta? And I said, no, I don't eat fruit. I try to eat under 20 grams of carbs a day. She goes, oh. I could never give up bread. I love bread. And I said to her, no, that's a lie. You don't love bread. You love your family. You love your friends. I love my dog. You don't love bread. You're addicted to bread. Tell yourself the truth. And you know what? She began to cry. That's why I'm crying, because we were standing in Starbucks and QFC, and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. Because the truth is hard, but it's better. It's better. And you know what? The doctors will not tell you the truth.
And once
You're
you're in
addicted
ketosis, you won't miss the potatoes. Like you'll be absolutely so happy without the potatoes.
Yeah.
You won't care about it. You won't be craving it, and you'll be addicted to it.
Well,
But
because
the
your
key-
body-
The key is 100%, that's the thing. You can't have a little bit of potatoes. You can't have,
Yeah.
3
You're
French
right.
fries.
Because it's a neural network.
Thank you.
The addiction is a neural network.
Yeah.
And then when you get off that neural network, it atrophies. So when you're 100% and you're not activating that neural network ever, it atrophies. Use it or lose it. Same thing with neural networks. All an addiction or craving is a certain branch of nerves. And when you
Years of
stop using
conditioning.
that branch, it just, over time, it just goes away.
Is there like is there like a time frame for when this goes away? Because like I've been doing this for like maybe like a month now, and every once in a while I'm just like, I want cupcake.
Yeah.
But there's nothing I can do. I'm just
That's normal for a month,
just
yeah.
like,
And sometimes it's
Drink
the
water.
emotional
it
reaction
is
to the
definitely
cupcakes.
because I will well not really cupcakes. It's like carbs and sugar. Like I will admit to like my addiction.
It used
My-
to make you happy. It used to make you feel good.
Yeah, or like something. It did something, but
It's emotional at
now
this
I'm
point.
just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's normal too.
Yeah, probably
It's that
like the
phase.
more time goes by, the less cravings.
Yeah.
The less you'll want that.
Yeah.
Well, and I still get like extra hungry if I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
I really do. But I don't go for the carbs anymore. Because
Right.
they call it a comfort food for a reason, right? And it's because the sugar hits your bloodstream and gives you a high.
Right.
There you go. There's your comfort food. But if I'm stressed out and I literally do get more hungry, it's not just in my head. I literally physically get more hungry. I'll just eat. If I've got cheese, if I've got salami, I eat bacon. That's the microwave bacon. They're 4 strips. They're raw. You put it in the microwave. In 3 minutes, you got crispy bacon. Sometimes I just eat that for lunch. Yeah. So honestly, or butter. I mean, is that gross? I just sometimes just take a little bit of butter and eat it, and it's just perfect. And I think once you I think the keto thing, it seems extreme and scary to people because a lot of people are used to low carb. They've heard it for years. Low carb, low carb. But when you put high fat, then
That's
people
what's
start
scary.
freaking out.
Yeah.
High fat, are you kidding me? But once you start having the fat, you're not going to want the carbs. I guarantee you. And then it will get out of your system.
I know.
And you won't be craving
Well,
it.
like you mentioning butter, I do not like butter.
Find something. Did you like the mayo?
Now that I'm not eating
Yeah.
cupcakes.
That's fine. Yeah.
You don't have to. There
butter.
are tons of other
There's
things.
so many other
Do you like
options.
bacon? There you go. Do you like steak?
Now,
And Margie.
that brings up another good point, is, keto has to be done right, too. It's not, a lot of people start with keto and they go, oh my gosh, I can eat bacon and cheese as much as I want. And then it becomes a bacon and cheese diet. Well, you gotta eat vegetables and stuff too. So that's the biggest mistake I think people make, is they're not eating enough vegetables when they're keto, because they're so thrilled with the bacon and the cheese and all the other savory foods. And we got to get the potassium and magnesium and all the vitamins and minerals that come from vegetables. The only way you can do keto without vegetables is to be an Eskimo and eat lots of organ meat and liver, because then you're getting your vitamins and minerals. Otherwise, you got to eat your veggies. But the Eskimos are a perfect example of a human population that has been shown to be super healthy, eating only animal products.
Yeah.
Vegans hate the Eskimos. They hate that story. They wish it never happened, because they want to get everybody off meat and off animal products. And I agree with a lot of their reasons because, inhumane and all that kind of stuff. Bev and I don't actually eat a lot of meat. We do occasionally, but we're mostly veggies. And fish is great. The omega-3s, again, with my brain research science, that's the best brain food, omega-3s.
And do the vegetables have to be good?
No. Any veggies? Yeah. But you do got to get your macronutrients too. So it's not just a macronutrient diet. You got to get those macros as well. So these are a couple examples. This is my new ice cream recipe, and this is Bev's ice cream that she buys. It's So Delicious brand. It's no sugar. It's sweetened with erythritol.
So, and I want to address, I love addressing people's individual questions. So I've been keto for almost 5 years and sugar-free for 7 or 10. I still have a sweet tooth. Him, not so much. But I was like, okay, I don't want to give up my sweets because I love them. So, but the great thing about ketosis and the great thing about this network, or this, I don't know if we want to call it a society or whatever, family, whatever you want to call it, is whenever you have, and that's why I think we appreciate Jen so much, is because, So anyway, long story short, you find, so this is our finished chocolate. Peege made the recipe. We worked together to kind of refine it. It's basically coconut oil, raw cacao powder, erythritol,
Protein powder.
Grass-fed whey, chocolate protein powder, Swanson's, protein BBs.
A little bit of mint.
Yeah, a little bit of mint. But you gotta eat it fast because the coconut oil will melt your hand.
Because at room temperature coconut oil melts, so in 5 minutes it'll be a puddle.
And you can also, so people who are like, oh, I'm vegan. Well, for vegans, there's vegan chocolate protein powder, there's lots of different things.
Do they sell this?
No.
We don't, but we give everyone the
recipe's on the website.
Oh, great.
You can make it at home, super easy to make. There's Amazon links for every ingredient. So Amazon is
What is it?
Don't pass me up.
He's like,
I'm doing this backwards though.
BEEGE and then PEEGE.
Great,
And
thank
we
you.
made it easier by getting the website beandp.life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we
And that redirects to Beege and Peege.com.
okay, so say that again now.
Well, and we'll put all this on our fat burning tribe site.
So
We'll put all this on there.
What's the crunchy stuff?
Thank you
Those are the
guys.
protein BBs that I just found.
Really good.
Another thing that we love to do is share different products when we find. It's basically just, I think it's protein isolates, right? It's whey
It's
protein.
concentrate. I like concentrate better than isolate.
Yeah.
I actually have found that I'm allergic to the erythritol and some of these substitute sugars. Sugar substitutes.
What's your reaction?
My jaw starts tightening up,
Interesting.
and I'm allergic to sulfur. Shut up.
Oh no!
You're done. You think you're done. But I have that same reaction to sulfa drugs. It literally, so sulfates
Interesting.
do the same thing to me.
Yeah.
So for me, and I do have a sweet tooth every now and then, and you just want something sweet. What I found is unsweetened shredded coconut, and I get 95 or 90% dark chocolate, and I just put it in the microwave for a little bit, put in the shredded coconut, mix it up, put it on some parchment paper, let it cool. I'm telling you, it's great. It's sweet enough, it's chocolate, it's good for you. So I can't do the fat bombs and all the other stuff because it's actually too sweet for me, and then I don't have a reaction to it as well.
Well,
And
Rochelle,
here's a perfect example
you
of
made, that was bread, right?
we're all different. And I've never heard that reaction before. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Every time I hear something different,
That's
from,
an acceptable
maybe
thing.
you're the only person in the world like that. Maybe there's a million more just like you. But
It is.
it's fascinating to me to hear stories like that all the time.
Have you tried Lohan?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
There you go.
specifically.
And that's why
So you
when
could kind of
that's kind of the team
with
that we
cinnamon
have.
or something.
So whenever someone says, "Oh, I'm allergic to coconut" or "I'm allergic to whatever,"
Yeah.
it's I love that challenge. So we're
It's like
Anything short.
are you? Does xylitol do the same thing to you,
I think
Any
so,
sugar
yeah.
alcohol probably
Yeah.
will for you, yeah.
or what
Yeah.
about stevia?
That just doesn't make me feel good. I just don't feel good when I, it
Yeah,
just,
monk
yeah.
fruit. Lohan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Monk
yeah,
fruit.
monk fruit.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's your next
I
experiment.
like monk fruit.
Lohan?
Yeah.
Oh,
So the, those pies
Like
that I
the
made are with monk fruit.
Monk
It's monk fruit.
and it's the same thing.
Like I'm trying
Well,
to
why don't we go ahead and take a break, and if you guys want to munch on some more or ask PJ any questions or whatever, and how about we start the movie at 8?
Yeah. Another mistake that keto people make is they eat too high protein. So Atkins is not keto. Atkins is low carb, and that's fantastic because it's another low carb diet, which is what people need to do. But when you eat high protein, like with Atkins, and like a lot of people make that mistake with keto, and it's still better than standard American diet, it's still low carb, which is fantastic, but too much protein, then the liver can turn that into sugar. Then your levels of sugar are higher, fat burning is lower, and so the true keto is, like they were saying in the movie, it's 70 to 80% fat, and then maybe 10% carbs at the most, and then the protein. So the leftover space for protein is pretty low. It's not too low because humans really don't need that much protein, as much as we thought we did. But that's the ultimate keto. Another mistake people make is they don't eat enough salt. So I already talked about eating enough veggies, but when you're true keto, and it's also a low salt diet. But that's not necessarily a good thing. It's another thing we've been programmed to believe is that salt is bad and gives you high blood pressure. No, carbs give you high blood pressure.
What about
And
other
salt is a good
spices?
nutrient.
And the salt is good. When you guys like
The other spices are fine.
try the keto
Spices are
diet,
great, yeah.
and like you go through like that week or two of transition, make sure to add a lot of salt.
Yeah, and we just salt all our food.
Yeah.
Not Morton,
Garlic salt.
Not Morton's. It's sea salt.
Yeah, sea salt.
Or it's Himalayan.
Right.
But yeah, it's delicious. Salt is delicious, and salt is actually good for you, especially pink Himalayan.
Would you say that's better than sea salt?
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys all came. I
Yeah,
totally
thank you for
appreciate
hosting.
it.
Thanks very much.
Thank